It is so important to focus on the details that the simplest things could totally mess you up. Since I'm shooting tethered, I have my image full resolution right here. So I can just dial it in super sharp and make sure that everything that I want in focus is actually in focus. What's up everyone? We are back in my studio and today I'm gonna be breaking down how I go about shooting a bottle in product photography, but also giving you an inside look of all the supporting gear that I use to make sure that my photos turn out perfect. We'll also be going over how I light things, and so hopefully there's some good takeaways for you the next time that you go to shoot some type of product photography in studio. Today's subject, drumroll, Jesus, is Prime by Logan Paul. I actually really like their bottles. They're fun, they have cool designs on them, so I thought this would be a great use case scenario just to show off how I would take a photo of something like this. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. All right, we're in the studio, but before we get too far into the picture taking process, let's go over my studio setup. Let's go over some key gear I'll be using. I'm gonna be using the Sony a7R5 as my camera with a tether guard lever lock plate attached at the bottom. Since I'm gonna be tethering to Capture One, I'm gonna be using the new Tether Pro Optima 10G cable. The lights that I'm gonna be using today are Pro Photo, so I'm gonna be using the Pro Photo Connect Pro for Sony cameras. Then the strobe I'll be using is the Pro Photo D2 500. All right, now let's start jumping into the photo shoot part of this. I have our product sitting on top of an Apple box on the tall side, and then I took a piece of pink paper that I cut out, and I just put across the front of that to get our ledge that our product is gonna be sitting on. Then as our backdrop, we have a black seamless, and both of these papers are by Savage. The angle of the camera is crucial for this type of photography, so I have it a little bit lower, and we have our bottle at more of a heroic angle. Also, good to note is I've left purposely a little bit of this bottle hanging over the edge, and you'll see why in a bit. Okay, time for some lights. Typically for my lighting process, I go one light at a time. This way it really helps me narrow down where light's coming from, so I don't have any other intruding lights and I get confused on how to adjust things. It just makes things a lot simpler. So if I have time, I always go one light at a time. So that's why I have my Pro Photo D2 on this stand, bare bulb, acting as our key light. Let's go ahead and take a couple test shots and see where we are right now. Here's a few things that I really love about my current setup that makes my workflow so much easier. I'm using an A7R5, which means those picture files are massive. I believe it's 60 megabytes per photo. But since I'm using the Optima 10G cable by Tether Tools, that information travels a lot faster. It really does help you move a lot quicker so that when you take your photo like this, it shows up almost instantaneously. Where before, if you're using a slower cable, it takes a lot longer. And so when you're shooting things like GIFs or stop motion or anything like that, it really slows down your day. I like where we're currently at, but now I can kind of zoom in, fine tune some of these. I love this shadow that's coming through right here, but I think we need to dial in the lighting a little bit better. We're getting a lot of spill onto our backdrop with this light kind of brightening up our entire world. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna flag that off. Pretty simple. If you don't have one of these, you can always just use a piece of cardboard or something dark just to flag off your light. And so we'll do that, and it should fix our problem. Make sure it's still hitting our product. Yep, that fixed it. Now, I just wanna try something. Our light is very harsh, which I do like what it's doing to the shadow, but I wanna see if it makes our bottle look a little prettier if I diffuse it. Right now we're at an 8.5 on our Pro Photo D2. Fire that. Pretty much everything that I use that's not electronic is Tether Tools. Right here we have our Tether Pro Optima 10G cable. Now this right here also just helps a little bit more cable security. I have some hooks on my tabletop right here just so that my cord doesn't just dangle off onto the ground and trip over it. So what's interesting about this cable specifically is that it doesn't allow for power to go into your camera because its main focus is to allow data transfer to go from the camera back to your Capture One station as fast as possible because, like I said, the files are huge for these cameras. Now, this is my Sony a7R5. I also use a Hasselblad, which is even bigger. So this cable comes in super handy when it comes to these large format images. Then to give you a little bit more of a rundown, we have this secured strap right here that just keeps it from going anywhere. I have a cup holder. We've got a little prime in there, boom. And then we have our iPad stand, and then we have our monitor mount back here that allows for it to go vertical as well, but we're shooting horizontal, so we don't need to worry about that today. So here's kind of the beauty of this setup. Now that I have my main key light pretty much where I want it, I have an idea of how I'm going to actually composite two different images for the bottle so that the bottle looks beautiful, but then we also get that little bit of shadow that's being created by the lip of the bottle hanging over the edge. I also want to put a backlight on it. So I've set up another D2 500 back here with a grid on it, a 50-degree grid. Now, typically how you would have to do this is you have to fire it, do a test shot, come back, test shot to get it in the perfect spot. But since I have this setup, which is a Capture One screen sharing over to my iPad, I can just take this off, put a live view on it. So now I have my live view and I can just do some quick little tweaks live on set and not have to spend all that time testing, shooting and testing. Makes it a whole lot faster. So much easier. There you go. I actually took the grid off of it because I kind of like the more natural spill that happens when it doesn't have a grid. Now to add a bit of character, I'm gonna add this pink magenta type gel to my backlight to give it a little bit more on-theme lighting. Yeah, that's pretty. Ooh, I like that one. Sweet. Now I think that's coming along real nicely. Last little step that I'm gonna do, because no drink photography is complete without a little bit of condensation. So I'm gonna add this, get our final photos, and then I'll share the result. One last thing that I love about this workflow that makes it so easy is that when you're doing product photography, it is so important to focus on the details. I can't tell you the amount of times I've been on a shoot where I think a photo looks great, whether it's lifestyle or product, that when you get home, because I'm not tethered, because I'm not shooting in a controlled environment, I open it up on Lightroom, I open it up on Capture One, whatever it might be, and I go, ah! It's out of focus, it's blurry, but it's not usable. Here in product photography, crucial step, be able to zoom in and make sure that all your details look crystal clear. And we do. So good. Amazing. I do really think that this photo turned out great. The way it was lit, the setup, and the little things really made a difference. The fact that we're able to use a tether cable, have our camera talk to Capture One, we were able to dial in that detail, that sharpness to make sure that we weren't missing anything. And this is what's gonna make your photography stand out above everyone else's. Also, I did put a list of all the gear and links that I used in this video to make my image a prime. So you can check out those below so you can find them easily. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.